Hi everyone, welcome. This is the second video to the first one, which was either titled Dehumanizing Humanity Through Birth Rates or Why Birth Rates Do Not Correlate with Preserving Humanity. Certain countries do, for instance, the whole tax-paying scheme a bit better by, not abstracting the human individual to just a taxpayer level and how this might be changed, right? And so maybe to recap in a few seconds, the whole purpose of the first video was to essentially ramble about the individual value of a human in a welfare system. Because you have seen the videos, right? People want more babies, higher birth rates. Birth rates in 2/3 of the countries all around the world do not add up to 2.1, which you need to sustain a healthy population. The 2/3 of the population are either shrinking or holding themselves up through migration. And I will say this, currently with the right-wing shift in the majority of these countries, I think that people will leave, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, not topic of today's video. So we have the claim, right, that birth rates and specifically babies in these welfare countries and essentially everywhere where people are demanding for more babies are only seen as future taxpayers for the very selfish reason to expect pensions for yourself. That's the whole thing. Not one have I seen one discussion in which someone is saying that, hey, these babies that we have, they are here to continue our human species. Not one did I hear that. There is not one single argument that has been going into this direction of the importance of preserving the human culture and arts and sciences and knowledge. We have not seen that. Very selfish reasons until this point. So that is the core claim that I'm making. And I do want to maybe go back into how the welfare states were built. I think after that, by the way, I have my notes here. After that, I do want to explain the Dunbar's numbers. So Robin Dunbar was an anthropologist, someone who studies the history of humanity, who made a very interesting claim about the number of relationships that you can have before it gets abstract. Then some case studies, specifically the Nordic countries, Scandinavia, very much known for high taxes, but very good lifestyles, and also people are happy repeatedly over the years. And so I think makes a lot of sense to look into that. Then maybe the overall diagnosis into why this trade argument is currently not working anywhere, essentially. Also not in Nordic countries. And then maybe the prescription and also thinking about how you might solve that. But since this might be a 9-minute video, the solution is not going to be long. Anyways, so these welfare systems came into place when Bismarck, a German politician, decided to find a way to keep riots of workers in place. So something that he can shut them up with. And he found an interesting way, which is to create social welfare systems. Nowadays they have a huge importance, but at that time Bismarck thought, and I mean he was right, that if you give people something they can be at least a bit grateful for and also pay into, that's what, will keep these socialist movements and protests in check. And so this is the existence of welfare states. That's all, sorry. Pretty short, but I think that's the most important thing. And so these welfare states, they consist of a huge number of people, right? Like if you look all around the world, most countries have somewhere between 60 million and plus people. Like obviously not all, but the very important countries do. And these countries, they rely on organization based on rules and based on paperwork to keep things running. Now, Robin Dunbar, who studied the history of humans and mankind, he noticed that based on our cortex size, the neocortex size, we are only able to maintain up to 150 individual relationships with people. That's it. The moment we go after or more than 150 people, that's when we will start abstracting people. That's when we will not really stay in close touch with people or occasionally text them or something of them. And so in early human civilization, we did not have that problem. I don't think that hunters and gatherers really had that many people in a tribe. I suppose the less people they were, like 20, 30, the faster you were able to move and also more flexible to move. So they were a community, obviously. So you are losing community. Now, a state is abstracting you to a tax ID, right? And obviously the state is expecting you to work and pay your taxes. And so a lot of people, for instance, now the Nordic countries come into place. So a lot of people outside the Nordic countries, maybe for the exception of Switzerland and where you don't pay taxes, people are very unsatisfied with how governments are being run, because a lot of your tax money goes into the structure of the state. That's just a fact. Because the state is running for millions of people. Obviously, it has thousands of employees and they need to be paid accordingly. And in some countries, you even pay their pension. And so this leads to unsatisfactory results. Because up until this point, certain countries are growing. So that means you need more people to employ. And the state essentially creates a huge financial burden for the taxpayers. So the taxpayer is not expecting anything. This is the current trajectory of a lot of countries in Europe, for instance. Now, the Nordic countries, they are a very interesting exception because I've made the claim that, one, if you only view babies as taxpayers, people will not care. Two, the state, like when you cannot trust the state and you're only seeing the money go into employees of a state, you are also not having kids because it's dehumanizing. Like you are being put into an abstraction. So these were my two claims until this point. Now, the Scandinavian countries, they are known for having a very transparent government. People trust their government. You pay high taxes. So in Denmark, you can pay up to 55% of your salary into taxes, but people know what they get. So you have a pay-as-you-go system that is mandatory taxes go into your pension, and then you also pay for your own pension. And this system works incredibly well for the Scandinavian countries. Like people get a huge chunk of the salary. It's more than half, I believe. Like I'm pretty sure it's more than half for Denmark, not quite sure about the other countries. But birth rates are still low, right? So obviously the claim that I'm making, it's not enough to explain the whole thing. But I think it might explain one thing. Because would you really consider having a child when a state is only viewing it as someone to tax for very selfish reasons? Because they were not able to figure out a better system to finance future retirees, just throwing out questions. And so the diagnosis overall is, if we follow my argumentation and, if we don't ask too many questions, it's kind of like you are not trusting the state. You actively see that language is also currently being used to dehumanize you as a taxpayer. And you also feel, how do you say that? Maybe a feeling of not doing anything because you are essentially as a single individual, like you have a goodwill, you can do things, but you are very much limited in what you can do. And so people obviously feel numb. So maybe that is also why the reason for some countries that they feel incredibly bad, they have no social atmosphere, right? And the only solution to experiencing the numb feeling and to maybe get rid of it and also to enhance your agency, because again, you cannot fix birth rates unless you contribute to it. And if you don't want to, that's also fine. You want to be a politician, fix a system, that's not going to work, in my opinion. Like you need more people than you. And here's what you will also need: radical optimism. So for everybody who is thinking that, hey, the whole video was pessimistic to one point, right? We are being abstracted to taxpayers. I don't want to feel that way. And if I have a family, I don't want them to feel that way. Then the only thing I think you can do is being radically optimistic. And for that, I have a book, which, give me 1 second. I have more books on the stack here, but this is the book I want to read for this argument that I'm making. It's a book highlighting radical optimism from, the title and from what I've read. Now, I don't know how it's going to explain radical optimism, but I know that it will explain radical optimism. And the moment you decide that I can't change everything, but at least I can change what's in my control, specifically to avoid being dehumanized to only being a taxpayer and someone who holds up the social welfare system and create a meaning beyond that for myself, that's when you will have agency. And that's when you will also develop your own agency, because you can't guarantee that the government will do that. They have other ideas, which consist of letting you work longer and increasing taxes because no people are coming afterwards, and probably also impose exit tax should you want to leave the country. And so the only thing that you can really do is start building yourself, because, I also live in a country with high taxes. And I can also tell you that the prospect of paying high taxes for a very long time for essentially nothing is not a very positive outlook. Like, I understand that young people throughout Europe are being dehumanized to only work longer and worse hours under worse conditions, by the way, to just keep boomers in their pensions comfortably. And obviously, in some countries, pensions are not enough. But then again, it's the system's fault because I didn't design it. It was designed and it never worked. And so you do feel sad, I think, or like at least a bit overwhelmed in what you can do. And so the only solution to stop being dehumanized is taking action. And I think that's it. I think if I want to do a sequel to that, maybe that's a bit more interesting. Namely, I've been thinking why the human preservation without culture and arts and, the science and the knowledge, which we are currently doing, will not result in anything worthwhile for the future. So yeah, maybe that's what I'll be doing next. And apart from that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, comment as well, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll read it. I just hope I don't forget to text you because sometimes that happens. Sorry. And yeah, that's it. See you.